Darkness had barely settled over the quiet residential block when a sudden call shattered the calm. A landlord's urgent voice carried through the emergency line, tense and strained, delivering the kind of message that instantly changes the rhythm of a police shift. One of his tenants was allegedly inside the house threatening others with a knife. Inside the property, according to the report, at least 2 people were hiding behind locked doors, trapped in their rooms while the situation in the hallway outside remained volatile and unpredictable.
No. Who got
54 minutes in.
Yeah, who got people at knife point?
Right here.
Is it here?
Beside your phone. You're not at night.
Alright.
So
Get
I'm
in
the landlord.
I understand. So who's it? Okay, what's the threat?
My tenant. He got 2 other tenants in there, but they're locked in their room.
Okay.
But he done lost his mind.
Incidents like this unfold in a fragile space between fear and action, where information is incomplete, emotions are heightened, and every decision must be made carefully but quickly. For the officers preparing to respond, the scene ahead would demand patience, communication, coordination, and readiness to confront danger if necessary. And before we go deeper into what unfolded that night, remember to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss more detailed breakdowns of real-life incidents like this one. The residence itself was the kind of property seen across many neighborhoods. A shared rental home where several tenants lived under the same roof but occupied separate rooms. These types of housing arrangements are increasingly common, particularly in cities where rising living costs push people toward shared accommodations. Kitchens, hallways, and living rooms become communal spaces, and while many tenants coexist peacefully, such arrangements can also create friction. People from different backgrounds and lifestyles are suddenly sharing close quarters, and disagreements can develop over noise, guests, cleanliness, rent payments, or simple misunderstandings. In most cases, those tensions remain minor, but occasionally they spiral into something much more dangerous. On this particular night, the landlord's report suggested the situation had crossed a frightening threshold. According to what he had been told by the tenants, one man inside the home had become increasingly erratic. At some point during the evening, he allegedly produced a knife during an argument and began moving through the house in a way that frightened the other residents. The tenants who felt threatened reacted in the way many people would when faced with sudden danger. They retreated into their rooms, locked their doors, and waited for help. When the first officers arrived at the property, the landlord was already waiting outside. His presence alone told part of the story. Landlords rarely stand outside their own properties at night unless something has gone seriously wrong. His expression, posture, and hurried explanations reflected the anxiety of someone responsible for a building full of tenants who were now potentially in danger. Police officers responding to calls like this understand that the first conversation at the scene is critical. The landlord's information could shape their entire strategy. Officers needed to know who was inside, who might be armed, who might be at risk, and what the layout of the house looked like. In situations involving edged weapons, understanding the environment becomes even more important because close quarters dramatically increase the potential for sudden violence. As the landlord spoke with the officers, he attempted to piece together the timeline that had led to the call. Earlier that night, he had reportedly received a frantic phone call from one of the tenants. The tenant explained that another resident had begun acting aggressively during a disagreement. Voices had been raised. The mood had shifted from tense to frightening. Then, according to the account relayed to the landlord, the suspect produced a knife. That moment instantly transformed a simple dispute into a potential crisis. Knife-related incidents inside homes carry a unique set of dangers. Unlike firearms, which are typically used at a distance, knives require close proximity. This means that in a confined environment like a shared house, the threat can escalate quickly if someone moves toward another person. Hallways, staircases, and small rooms offer little space to retreat. For the tenants who felt threatened, the safest option was to isolate themselves. According to the landlord, at least 2 of them had locked themselves inside their bedrooms upstairs. They had called him directly rather than confronting the suspect themselves. Their voices on the phone, he said, sounded frightened but controlled. They had barricaded themselves quietly, hoping the suspect would not attempt to enter their rooms. Inside those locked spaces, the experience must have felt agonizingly slow. Being trapped behind a door while an armed individual moves somewhere in the same building creates a powerful sense of vulnerability. Every sound becomes magnified: the creak of a floorboard, footsteps in the hallway, a door opening or closing. Victims in these situations often struggle with whether to stay silent or attempt to communicate with someone outside the building. In this case, the decision to contact the landlord may have prevented a direct confrontation that could have ended far worse. For the officers standing outside the property, the information painted a clear picture. Frightened tenants were hiding behind locked doors while an allegedly armed individual moved somewhere inside the house. That meant time mattered. But rushing inside without understanding the situation could also make things worse. As the conversation with the landlord continued, officers asked a crucial question: where exactly was the suspect now? According to the landlord's best understanding, the man had last been seen in the front room of the house. The front room, often used as a living room or shared gathering space, sat close to the main entrance. That detail introduced both opportunity and risk. If the suspect truly was near the front entrance, officers might be able to establish contact quickly without navigating the entire house. On the other hand, approaching the front door could place them directly within the suspect's line of sight. The officers began discussing their approach. Knife-related calls require careful positioning because distance can determine survival. A person holding a knife can move extremely quickly in a confined space, often faster than people expect. Training emphasizes maintaining distance while issuing commands, giving officers time to react if the suspect suddenly advances. They also had to consider the possibility that the suspect might attempt to leave the house. If he exited unexpectedly while still holding the knife, he could encounter neighbors, pedestrians, or the officers themselves at very close range. As officers moved toward the front of the residence, they noticed something surprising. The front door appeared to be unlocked. That detail created a moment of pause. An unlocked door meant officers could potentially enter quickly if necessary, but it also meant the suspect might not expect them to arrive so soon. Approaching a door in a potentially dangerous situation is one of the most tense moments in police work. Officers watch windows, listen carefully, and position themselves to avoid standing directly in front of the doorway. They communicate quietly with one another, ensuring everyone understands the plan. Instead of immediately forcing entry, the officers chose a strategy that law enforcement agencies increasingly emphasize in volatile situations: communication first. From outside the doorway, officers called into the house, identifying themselves and asking the individual inside to come to the door so they could talk. The tone of these calls is deliberate. Officers aim to sound firm but calm, making it clear that cooperation can resolve the situation peacefully. Inside the house, the suspect may have heard the voices echo through the hallway. At that moment, the dynamic of the situation changed completely. What had been a dispute inside a shared home was now a confrontation involving law enforcement. Officers continued speaking, calling the suspect by name as they attempted to establish contact. Addressing someone directly by name can humanize the interaction and reduce the sense of chaos. It signals that officers know who they are dealing with and that they expect a response. The conversation continued as officers worked to confirm details. Was anyone else with the suspect? Was he still in the front room? Did he understand that the police were outside asking him to come forward? Despite repeated attempts to persuade him to open the door and speak peacefully, there was no immediate compliance. Silence in these moments can mean many things. The suspect might be thinking, hiding, panicking, or deciding what to do next. Officers cannot assume intent, but they must prepare for every possibility. Eventually, officers issued a clear warning. If the suspect refused to cooperate, they might be forced to kick the door open and secure the scene. Such warnings serve a purpose. They give the suspect one final chance to comply voluntarily before officers escalate their response. Then the situation shifted dramatically. The suspect appeared from inside the house. In his hand was the knife that had triggered the entire call. In an instant, the situation moved from negotiation to confrontation. Officers immediately began issuing firm commands. Drop the knife, stay where you are, and listen carefully to instructions. These commands are repeated loudly and clearly because clarity matters in high-stress situations. Knife encounters remain among the most dangerous situations officers face. A person with an edged weapon can cover a surprising amount of distance in seconds. Officers must maintain space while controlling the situation with verbal commands. The suspect's movements now carried enormous weight. A single step forward or sudden motion could force officers to react instantly. The officers continued repeating their commands, keeping their focus on the knife and the suspect's hands. At the same time, they remained aware that frightened tenants were still locked inside rooms elsewhere in the house. Every decision had to protect those individuals as well. What followed was a tense standoff lasting only moments but feeling far longer for everyone involved. Officers maintained distance, communicated with each other, and continued giving the suspect clear instructions. Eventually, the confrontation ended with the suspect brought under control and the knife secured. Only after the weapon was no longer a threat could officers move deeper into the house to check on the tenants who had been hiding behind locked doors. Those tenants, who had spent the ordeal waiting anxiously, were finally able to emerge knowing the danger had passed. Incidents like this illustrate how quickly ordinary living situations can transform into potentially life-threatening events. They also highlight the delicate balance officers must maintain between caution and action. Communication often becomes the most powerful tool available in preventing violence. Witnesses and landlords provide critical information that shapes the response. Officers must coordinate carefully to avoid unnecessary harm while protecting those at risk. And situations involving knives remind everyone involved, officers, tenants, and communities, just how unpredictable and dangerous close-range confrontations can be. In the end, swift response, careful communication, and coordinated action helped bring a dangerous moment to a controlled conclusion, protecting the people inside the home and preventing a volatile situation from becoming something far worse. If you want more deep-dive breakdowns of real-life incidents and the lessons behind them, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next report.